So we spoke last week about the brewing MAGA civil war, mainly with Elon Musk prompting a massive backlash on Twitter. Was it on Boxing Day? Obviously wasn't on Twitter then, because of his support for the H-1B visa, because a lot of his companies, SpaceX, Tesla, and probably Twitter as well, they have a lot of people who are on these visas, which means they are migrant workers in America. And basically, for various different reasons, it prompted the backlash. A lot of it recently, and as I've made a video before, is about how many of these people on the visas are from India. Now, that's going to play into this video as well, because we're going to talk about Steve Bannon, because when I spoke about this originally, I was talking about Twitter backlash, but now Steve Bannon has gone on basically a massive rant against Elon, and you can clearly see the stark differences between these two fascists. And I called Elon an opportunistic fascist before. And I also said, he is deeply racist, he is deeply bigoted, but why he's throwing his money and weight behind a fascist movement is to benefit him primarily. He is no American nationalist. I know he's an American citizen, but he is South African. And he is someone who doesn't really give a shit about the American people, or he doesn't really have an ideal America he's fighting for, right? And Steve Bannon and a lot of fascists in the MAGA movement, there is an America they're fighting for. It's, a white supremacist America where there is the minimum amount of migrant laborers. And I think it's pretty clear that Steve Bannon is probably an actual Nazi. In terms of ideologically, he is one, and he wants to create some sort of American state around a national socialist ideology. That's what it feels like to me, and we're going to get into that. But what is underpinning all of this is also a lot of America Firsters just hate Indians, and Steve Bannon is another one, and one of his favorite books, and I'm going to speak about this book today, is called The Camp of the Saints, which is a far-right racist book from France in the 1970s. And it's basically showing the West collapsing because of Indian migration. And constantly, him and Stephen Miller have referenced this in regards to Europe, but also in regards to America, that if they keep up the immigration levels in America, it's going to be like Camp of the Saints. And you definitely know if there is more Indian migration happening to America with Elon trying to get this visa even more relaxed so you can get more migrant labor from places like India, that's going to piss off actual white nationalist Americans like Stephen Bannon. So I'm going to talk about all of that today. Please just follow me on social media, follow my new game on Instagram, follow my other Instagrams, and most importantly, follow me on Blue Sky. Like I said in a video last week, I've quit Twitter. I'm not using it anymore, and I'm not even going to cross post on it. I did say I was going to do that. I'm really not going to bother with that unless it's something super important, I have to say. Some sort of, drama of YouTube or something. I'm just not even going to cross post on it now. Basically, I'm pretty sure most of you would have seen the reporting around this. And I'm pretty sure most of you would have seen the headlines that Steve Bannon has said about Elon Musk. But you probably haven't read the actual interview because it's in Italian. So I just screenshotted a translated version of it, and it might not completely line up. But let's just get back into the origins of this feud, because Steve Bannon has been going after Elon for the last month, and he's even said something today as well, another thing. So just talking about the H-1B visa, I was just reading today that approximately 78% of the 260,000 visas issued by the US in the fiscal year ending September 2023 were given to Indian people. So just to frame this even more, so Steve Bannon criticizes Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy over immigration policies in MAGA conflict. So he says this about both of them. The nerds don't take criticism. They're kind of, they're a little bit on the spectrum, right? They don't know, they're not deep in social skills. And I say you can't run a country by algorithm. You can't run a country by the nerds that create and target. Their companies all employ a handful of people, right? They're all math. They're all mathematicians, all about algorithms. Now, of course, there's a split, obviously, in the MAGA movement right now. You have the nationalists who don't want migrant laborers, and you have the Silicon Valley tech bros. Obviously, JD Vance is the most powerful and well-connected one, and he's the vice president. Bannon's kind of out at the moment. These people are in, and it's just going to be interesting to see if this lasts, because prediction for the future, I don't think the tech bros are going to last with Donald Trump. So here's the interview I was talking about. It's a bit longer, But Steve Bannon saying, Elon Musk only wants the money. I will do everything to keep him out of the White House. So bear with me. I'm going to read you all the answers. There's not loads of them, but I thought it's worth listening to the entire interview because most people are just quoting like one quote he said. So the article is saying, Maggie Haberman of the New York Times says that Trump complains to people about how much Musk is present. Trump seemed to agree with Musk, saying he was a supporter of H-1B visas, but a survey by Sean Spicer on Twitter revealed that 67% of his followers were hostile to it. Steve Bannon saying on this, the techno-feudatories use them to their advantage, talking about migrant labor, and people are furious. 76% of engineers in Silicon Valley are not American. It is a central part of taking back our economy. They are the best jobs, and blacks and Hispanics don't have access to them. What is interesting about this whole interview is that Bannon, for some reason, is playing the identity politics card against like people like Elon Musk, but let's get more into it. So the interviewer asking, against Musk, you are aligned with Bernie Sanders, who writes about H-1B visas on Twitter, saying they replace well-paid American jobs with foreign contract servants and billionaires make money. So the translated thing saying, Peter Thiel, David Sachs, Elon Musk are all white South Africans. He should go back to South Africa. Why do we have white South Africans, the most racist people in the world, to comment on everything that happens in the US? Of course, I love Bernie, who is now joining the H-1B visa party. We've been doing this battle for 10 years and Bernie hasn't said a word because of all the money that the Democratic Party take from the techno-feudatory. We will expose the corruption of the American system, how money controls everything, and we hope to inspire Italy to wake up. So you'll notice he's using populist language that might be compatible with the left-wing understanding, but obviously you have to be a bit smarter when he's talking about things like money in politics, when he's talking about like foreign influence, and even things like race. You have to kind of like peel it back and realize who Stephen Bannon really is. Because when he's talking about money controlling everything, he's not strictly just speaking about like massive corporate influence in America. It obviously is a bit more sinister when you keep referring to people as globalists and you are a fascist. We pretty much know who you're talking about. What do you think of Musk interventionism in European politics? Bannon saying, he suffered a big defeat in America on the visas. He mocked our movement as racist and he lost. He has the maturity of a child. He tried to change the subject after the loss of credibility in the US and the fact that, frankly, people around Trump are tired of him. We have seen his intrusive nature, his lack of understanding of the real themes, and his support for only himself. His only goal is to become a trillionaire. He will do anything to make sure that each of his companies is protected or has a better deal or makes more money. For aggregation of wealth and through wealth of power, this is the objective. American workers will not tolerate it. I was a supporter of the $250 million check he cut for Trump, and I am a supporter of his involvement in far-right movements in Europe. So that is really interesting. Again, using populist language that Cenk Uygur might even call Steve Bannon a leftist. But obviously, this type of rhetoric is very effective at undermining Elon Musk because a lot of conservatives will just follow you if you just parrot the conservative dogma, the conservative racism. But if you want to push people out the door on ideological grounds, it's very easy to go after Musk in terms of this. Like, yeah, he is only in it for himself, and the visa issue is such a wedge that the far right nationalists can use to like drive a wedge between Trump and Musk. And I think it will be effective in the long run. But going on to say, do you talk to Musk about this? I threw him out of the White House every day for 30 days in a row in 2017, where he tried to get subsidies paid by American workers, basically taxes on people who earn $35,000 a year for rewriting Tesla's software. I don't need to talk to Musk. I know what he's aiming for. And Bannon said this today. He told Politico's White House bureau chief, Dasha Burns, that Musk has had some influence over cabinet picks, but he doesn't have the ability to actually make decisions and inform those decisions. He also acknowledged the fight over the visas, saying that the Tesla CEO has already budged by acknowledging that the program needs reform. Bannon said that they'll move Musk even closer to the stance of MAGA loyalists. We're winning this round, and we're winning this round pretty big, Bannon said. I think we'll get Elon there. As soon as I can turn Elon Musk from a techno-feudalist to a populist nationalist, we'll start making real progress. So I'm going to go on to Steve Bannon's like real motivations for this in a sec, like mainly looking at the racist angle. But I do think in the long run, this is going to be effective in freezing Elon Musk out. Like I've said for a long time, I don't think Elon's going to last in the Trump administration because, first of all, he's really annoying, which a lot of them have already like said to the press. But also, this framing of him is just accurate as well, and feeding this sort of framing to a group of nationalists who like hate immigrants, that someone who wasn't born in America has now basically bought his way into the White House and is using this to advocate for policies that will directly hurt American workers, and he will be bringing over non-white immigrants to take those jobs as well, just so he can make you a slave to corporate power. That's going to play well, because one thing I've noticed as well with just conservatives in America, it's very hard to find any like very brazen defense of capitalism at this point. Like, they're all banging on about like BlackRock, they're banging on about like the World Economic Forum. It's pretty clear that a lot of conservative conspiracy theories rely around corporate authoritarianism. And in that, when you have someone like Musk doing what he's doing, and then you have people like Bannon and other people might join him soon on the America First side saying like, yeah, Musk is doing this, and he's doing this and replacing you and replacing white Americans as well with immigrants, that's going to work well with a lot of racists. It just depends what Donald Trump wants to do. But as we saw the chaos of his first administration, like, think of people like, I say Rex Tillerson. Like, some of you might not even know who that was. Rex Tillerson was a CEO who became the Secretary of State. You probably don't remember him. And you probably don't remember him because he was basically fired by Donald Trump. Like, a whole host of people, like Jeff Sessions. Remember him as Attorney General, like out the door within a year? Like, these people have just faded into the background so much because Trump just fired whoever he didn't like. And I firmly believe by the end of 2025, Elon will not be deeply in bed with Trump anymore. I just can't see that happening. And even though Bannon's saying, oh yeah, like, we'll push him in the nationalist direction, Elon can say that all he wants. But when it comes down to it, like even Bannon was saying, he mainly cares about the money to insulate himself and to create as much power for himself. So he's not accountable to any government, even though he's not already. But let's now go into the racism angle, because with the economic stuff, you can take that seriously if you want with Steve Bannon. You can take that seriously with like America First types. So if they are genuine national socialists, perhaps they do care about economic stuff. I still believe a lot of stuff when you're dealing with fascism, the cultural stuff is more important to them, and that's why I want to talk about this book, The Camp of the Saints, which Steve Bannon likes. So let me just read you some quotes of his to show you how much he actually used to reference this. So October 2015, it's almost been a Camp of the Saints type invasion into Central and then Western and Northern Europe. January 2016, the whole thing in Europe is about immigration. It's a global issue. This kind of global Camp of the Saints, it's not migration, it's really an invasion. I call it the Camp of the Saints. When we first started talking about this a year ago, we called it the Camp of the Saints. I mean, this is the Camp of the Saints, isn't it? And I mean, a lot of people don't know what the fuck that is. I only learned about it when he started talking about it back in the day. From a lecture by Jeffrey C. Alexander at Yale University, he just talks about the context of this book. In 1973, a Frenchman named Jean Raspail published a novel called The Camp of the Saints. It painted a story about brown and black immigrants destroying Western civilization. An Indian demagogue called the Turd Eater leads an armada of 800,000 impoverished dark-skinned Indians from the subcontinent to Europe's southern shores, rampaging through the countryside. These dark hordes proceed northwards, multiplying like bunnies, doing assaults to women and killing the men. Finally, they take control of major cities, Paris, London, and eventually even New York. Initially, it was unpopular, but in 1983, it had funding by far-right donors who published it again, and then it became popular with the far right. And basically, just like every far-right person just like loves this book. If you are describing immigration and refugee crises as a Camp of the Saints type situation, knowing obviously what we know now, that book is insanely racist about Indians coming over to the West and destroying Western civilization, you know that a lot of Steve Bannon's problem with Elon Musk and the immigrant labor isn't so much like immigrant laborers doing jobs and taking away jobs from Americans. It's more taking away jobs from white Americans and basically more immigrants coming to America to, I don't know, displace the white race. And a lot of like white replacement theories were inspired by this book. So you can see that for a lot of fascists in the White House, like Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon, when they're talking about the Camp of the Saints, That's literally all they mean. White replacement, that's all they give a shit about, the cultural reasons. And so much of this stuff, why it's depressing, is someone like Steve Bannon comes in and talks about the economic factors, right? So do a lot of Canadians as well when they talk about this issue. But when you press them really, it always comes down to the cultural factors. In my video about the racism against Indians in Canada, while a lot of them framed it as, oh my God, there's no more jobs, oh my God, there's no more houses, the main sentiment was, oh my God, they don't speak English and they're destroying our Canadian culture. And I also made a video called Everything is Fascist Now, but just because this rhetoric has just become so normalized, where in 2016, we're all talking about, oh my God, like Steve Bannon believes in like this white replacement, like the death of Western civilization from refugees. That is just normal rhetoric from like everyone in politics these days. So it's depressing that if Steve Bannon was appointed like vice president, no one would even probably bring this book up and bring him quoting this book up, because everyone just feels this way about non-white immigration now and refugees. And in Europe, it's a big topic. You know, Keir Starmer campaigned on, I will deport them faster. That's meant to be the leftist in the UK talking about this stuff. And also the solution to a lot of these things is never, we must like raise wages and make laws. So, I don't know, migrant labor generally, not just the H-1B visas, migrant labourers must be paid fairly and treated fairly. And we should improve public housing. And if we do need immigration to sustain like whatever, like health services or just like the lifeblood of a country, then we should just make that easier for people and treat them with dignity. Because yeah, as a left-wing person, I believe things like nation states are just stupid constructs. So no one ever proposes those solutions, despite the fact that immigration is just going to become such a massive issue because of climate change, where you can't just ignore it and you can't just implement fascist policies, because that won't address the actual problems. If millions and millions of people are coming to a country for safety, you actually have to change the way the country is structured so you can safely and effectively accommodate these people. None of these far right, none of these conservatives, none of these liberals, they never talk about immigration in these ways. And with Stephen Bannon, he might quote it in this economic populist language where you can try and drive a wedge between him and Elon economically, but I still think his main problem, and a lot of his fascist problem, is that Elon is hiring non-white immigrants. If Elon was hiring Germans and English people, I'm not sure Bannon would have such a problem with English engineers at the Tesla factories. That's just me. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with this MAGA civil war. I think the MAGA nationalists will win overall. I just can't see Elon sticking around, because no matter the motivations, they have called him out for what he's doing, and that is just trying to enrich himself and using the MAGA movement to basically get everything he wants out of Donald Trump, rather than having any proper political ideology to be implemented on the American state. So that's it for the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.